just becoming obsessed with it. I dropped all my Web2 clients. I dropped all my other clients because I so desperately wanted to get into this.
From karaoke champion to Broadway star, from songwriter to music executive, Chad's deep-rooted passion for music and songwriter rights has found a path back to ownership and community through his new project, Toigo's Door. Is blockchain tech the big unlock for the future of music, the future of an entire industry? Let's open the door and find out.
I've been in the Web2 music industry my whole life. I was a creative for a long time. I had albums in Canada. I was brought to the United States to be in a Broadway show. After that, I was a professional songwriter for 10 years. I've got 35 plus cuts all over Asia. And then I went to the business side of music. When I was a C-level, I was working with very big artists. I signed Timbaland, I signed Steven Tyler. I worked with Drake, The Weeknd, all those cats. And that was awesome. In my consulting business, I was really obsessed with developing writers. So I had always really wanted to be for young creatives, something that I didn't have for myself. And a lot of that was because of just the generation I grew up in. I was an artist in the 90s. So there was no internet, really. There was no iTunes, none of that kind of stuff. There was no social media. So everything you did to promote yourself as an artist was very tactile stuff. Like when we would tour, we'd have to have a street team putting posters up on the telephone poles in advance. That sounds so archaic, but that really wasn't that long ago. So when Web3 came along, I looked at it and I was like, all right, well, there's only been about 47,000 music NFTs that have been put out so far. So in the beginning, it just seemed like, okay, well, this is a really small pool and this is something that could work. And then I went on this mission to understand it more. And originally, this was purely for my client. By educating myself in Web3 and going to these conferences, because I went on like a conference frenzy, that turned into me seeing what is possible and just becoming obsessed with it. Now, I had a very established business already, and I literally made a decision, and that was to pretty much shut my whole business down and reopen my business as a Web3 music NFT consulting company. I dropped all my Web2 clients except for Toigo and one other. And Toigo, because we were doing this Web3 project, I dropped all my other clients because I so desperately wanted to get into this. I could not express more that I believe this is the absolute future of music. I think it's the future of everything, but definitely music. It's the absolute future of music, but it doesn't lie in flipping NFTs and making $10 on a music NFT because you flipped it. Music is very important to me. I've always said that if you could whisper in the ear of 1 million people at one time and say whatever you want to say, wouldn't that be a superpower? Songwriters do that every day. They write words that when you're driving home from your job and you're dealing with a heartbreak, 5 words from a Taylor Swift song can I'm sorry, I'm getting verklempt. It's so powerful to me. It's a superpower. I believe it's a superpower. And I believe that creators aren't treated properly. I got shivers right now thinking about that. Not because it was so inspiring what I said, not like that, but I just mean, I truly believe that songwriters and creatives are so important in our society and they're so not treated as such. And Web3 gives so many more ways to express yourself as a creative. I never met a creative that was like, I write songs and that's all I do. I paint and that's all I do. Every creative does multiple things, but it has to be fit in a box to make it easy. It's like, oh, okay, I'm a country singer, or I'm a painter, or I'm a sculptor. Web3 allows you to show multi-sides of yourself. When we released Toigo's Door, we were releasing an NFT single, and then we ended up also spending 6 months building an entire video game that him and I wrote the script for. He wrote all the music for. The game is all about the team, professional Minecraft players, because we built Minecraft. It's taking them about 5 hours to complete. It's a hugely complex game. Now in the NFT Web3 world, that makes sense for some reason. Like, oh, cool, you're releasing it. That's so amazing. But in Web2, I have Web2 friends still that can't wrap their head around it. They're like, so what? You released a video game with the song? What's the point of that? The mindset is so different. There's so many things in Web3 that the culture has it's redefined what a fan is. It's redefined what music is. Once we move past that flipping side of music NFTs and we focus more on the tech, I think mass adoption is slowly going to happen. I went to a conference. It was a metaverse called TCG, Amazing Metaverse. That conference was smaller, unlike NFT NYC, which is like multi-venues all over the city. This conference was like in one area in the Vegas Convention Center. I did that right before NFT Seattle. And those two together really changed my view, mostly because I just met awesome people there. TCG, they're a metaverse, and their vendors were all the different people that already have plots that are working in their metaverse. So it was really kind of odd. Okay, here's an IRL version of their metaverse, because here are all the different collections in real life, all next to each other, that interact with each other in their metaverse, because it's a real world metaverse where I can be in your place and then walk over to the next place and then do something there. And that was the moment that, even though it really had nothing to do with NFTs, that the whole, I don't know, it was meeting people in real life and then looking at their collections and just making the connections that it started making sense to me. And then I went to NFT Seattle right after, and NFT Seattle was even more condensed. It was one room for 2 days. So by the end of that conference, everybody in that room knew each other. Everyone had attended every panel. Everyone had seen every performance. And that was really different. I think it was after that one that I fired all my clients. I really did. And when I was firing them, I was like, if you're not interested in coming along this ride, I don't want to do it. And I say that because I truly believe that it's the future. And if you don't want to start now with what is going to be huge in 2 years, then I would have felt like I was not wasting my time, but I'm not interested in that. I've always been interested, because I'm a creative myself, in just doing new things, new ideas, new possibilities. Like, new always excites me. And last December, when I first started to look into the December before, when I first went to start looking at FTs, I was at a point in my career where things just worked fine. Things were great. Money was good. Clients were good. But it seemed like it was going to be boring for the next 10 years. It was like, okay, this is what I'll do. This is the point I'm at in my career. And now a year later, I feel like I'm 12 years old and have the time of my life. The part that really excited me when it came, here's what I believe. I came up with the concepts of the 3 values of music. Music used to have 3 values. It had an ownership value. Now, when I say used to, I'm talking from the beginning of time to the CD era, before streaming. Music had 3 values. It had an ownership value, because I own it. I'm holding on to it. It's mine, but like ownership. And psychologically, that ownership value is something very big. People think, especially with NFTs, like whatever. But I'm telling you, psychologically, when you own something, there's a very different way you interact with it in your mind. So it had the ownership value. It had the educational value. The educational value was in the record era, the record sleeves that you take out have all the credits. CDs, it got even more intense. CDs became booklets. So I had 3 of my own albums out. And I remember when I made my booklets, it was a big deal. That was a creative extension of who I was. Your lyrics were in there. You designed it all. When I worked in the Asian market, they're even next level, especially Korea, yes, Japan even more. Like Japan, their books are insane. I would do a track for an artist in Japan, and I was less excited about the track being out on the radio in Japan, more excited to see the booklet that was going to come with it, because they were so crazy. That was the educational value. And then the third value was the emotional value, which is the music itself, the driving down the road, and those lyrics change how you're feeling. That's the emotional value. Then streaming came along and took 2 of those values away. They took the ownership value away, and they took the educational value away. So music became, 1, not personalized because you didn't own it, and 2, it became faceless. All it was from that point on was just the artist and the music. And we, as a generation, became content with that. This is what music is. It's not owning it. We have a whole generation that don't even understand the concept of owning music. Like, what does that mean, right? So NFTs have come along, and they've added all that back, plus a 4th one. They've given you the ownership value because you own it. You own the song in the respect of what owning a song within the NFT market means. It brings back the educational value because now you can bundle tons of stuff in. I mean, we just put a whole video game out with our artists. So it's not just anymore the song facelessly on a streaming service, and that's it. The culture allows you to show so much more of yourself and collaborate with other people. Let's work with this visual artist to do my cover, and cross communities. There's a whole different thing there. And of course, it retains the emotional value of the song itself, but then it adds this 4th value that we've never had before. It's astonished me that the legacy artists have not hooked on to this more. But the 4th value is the fan value and the connection with fans in ways that have just technically never been possible before. And I could talk for a whole hour of different programs and companies that have sprung up that are doing things with this tech that you've never been able to do with fans, and that are going to blow people's minds when it starts getting out there. And I think the fan experience is what is really going to be the thing that brings mass adoption. The other stuff is great. There's lots of music collections in the space that are still leaning really heavy on flipping the songs and all that kind of stuff. And I do believe there's a place for that. I do some of that. I think that there's always going to be degens or whatever they want to call them that want to flip and try to make money off NFTs and stuff. I think mass adoption is going to come through fan experience. And once I saw those 4 values, I was so sold that I've never been upset that I wasn't younger in my life than I am now. I wish this had to happen when I was like 30. Insane. Because it is absolutely all the things that streaming took away that all of us that were there before have dealt with and mourned, they're back. It's like digital took everything away and then felt really bad and was like, okay, we're going to take the tech another level up and give all this stuff back to you, right? And giving people the opportunity to do stuff they've never been able to do before. And I think the future is going to be Web3 is going to be your revenue stream. Web2 is going to be your marketing stream. Spotify is a marketing stream. It's not a revenue stream. More people are making a living in the music industry now than ever in recorded history. Don't look at Spotify and be angry that you're not making a living off it, but be happy at Spotify because you're getting exposure in places nobody would ever discover you if they didn't exist. And if your entire revenue stream is based on Spotify, you're making a massive mistake. I worked with Drake and people will go, oh, but look at what Drake makes on Spotify. Okay, but if you take Drake's Spotify revenues and compare them to all his other revenues, Spotify is not where Drake makes his living. Like anybody else. Even Drake doesn't make a living off Spotify. He makes tons of money off it, but comparatively to his other revenue streams, it's a small revenue stream and needs to be looked at as such. And when NFTs came along, I was like, whoa, a whole new place to make the money that no one's making. And then it all just became clear for me. I was like, okay, yeah, you're making more money on a music NFT, even when you sell it cheap. People who sell a music NFT for $10, that's nothing in the NFT world. You can't get people to pay $1.29 over on iTunes in the Web2 world because the culture is just so differently looked at. The perfect world, we could have skipped streaming and went right from CDs to NFTs. That would be amazing, but we are where we are. So I grew up in Newfoundland, Canada, off the East Coast. It's past Nova Scotia. I was born in 1970. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in a culture with no internet. We didn't have TV from off the island until I was 14, I think. You know, it's Irish, white Irish fishing island. I just remember looking at thumbing through Encyclopedia Britannica. That's literally, it's like Encyclopedia Britannica was my internet. That's so sad. But I was like leafing through and I'd see all these people that didn't look like me. And I was just obsessed with it. I was like obsessed with the idea of different people, different races, different cultures, because I grew up in such a traditional white Irish place. I wasn't exposed to any of that. And at 17 years old, after I finished high school, I moved by myself to Paris and went to chef school for 2 years and got my chef degree. I did that because back in that era, this was before American Idol and all this kind of stuff, the path to being a musician was just not something that was even possible. I was in a very big band back in my hometown and stuff, but that's the only place I saw it going. Cooking was my B plan. I went to France and I ended up doing a work term for 2 months in a town called Megève in the French Alps. All I had with me was my guitar, a Van Morrison cassette, and my cassette player, one cassette. It was during that work term that I started writing my own songs. I came back from that work term and I called my parents and I was like, look, I know you sent me to France and this is costing a lot of money and all this kind of stuff, but I don't care if I'm rich or poor. Music is what I have to do. I'd made that decision. I knew that I had to do it. It's hard to explain, but if you know a creative, there was just no question for me. Music was what I had to do. And then I moved to Montreal, and then I was always just trying to do my own thing. I had moderate success. In Montreal, I won the national karaoke contest in 1990 and won like $5,000, and that kept me going for a while. Karaoke was really big in 1990 in Canada. I would do this karaoke bar circuit every week, and I was like a shark. I was a ringer, right? I'd come up and pretend like I didn't know what I was doing, and then I'd go crazy and I'd win. I was literally putting myself through life doing these karaoke competitions. And then I sent a demo to Warner Records in Toronto to a guy named Kim Cook, who's the president, who's a really good friend of mine now. He sent me back a form letter saying, we're not signing you. I'd done my first demo. And for some reason, at 20 years old, full of piss and vinegar, I was like, oh, you're giving me a record deal? And I literally left my apartment. I skipped out on my lease in the middle of the night, convinced my drummer drummer to come with me. We drove to Toronto to get our record deal that didn't exist. I'm like, well, I'm here now. And I just started getting in the music scene. I was a moderately known independent musician in Toronto. I put my first album out and it did pretty well within that scene. That went on for a few years. And then in 1997, they were looking to cast the Canadian production of the Broadway musical Rent. And my buddy told me I should audition. I didn't want to do it. And he dared me. And 15,000 people auditioned. And I got the lead role. So that kind of changed my life. I went from being completely unknown to insanely famous in Canada in 1997, which was in the end why I left Canada, because I hated being famous. Something I thought I always wanted, and then I got it, and I didn't like it at all. I really hated it. When they closed in Canada, they asked me if I wanted to go down to New York. So I went down to New York, and that was like 23 years ago. I've been in the States ever since. So after the 5 years on Broadway, I ended up kind of becoming the de facto songwriter producer for the cast, because like everybody on Broadway really wants to be a music star. So I started writing songs and producing for other cast members. And then I put my own third album out while I was in the cast. And then my ex-wife, she was also in the show. We got married and then decided to leave the show and come back here to California where she's from. So I set up a recording studio in my house. I had another second recording studio in Toronto. And then for 10 years, I wrote for other artists. Back when I was 40, so that's 2010? Yeah, 2010, I had a split dispute. In other words, the percentage of the song dispute with a publishing company. And I won the dispute, like over an argument. And then they asked me to come work for them. And that was the first time I'd ever really worked for anybody in that space before. At first, I felt very intimidated because I thought I wouldn't have a clue. Like I wouldn't understand how that world worked. But interestingly enough, when you run your own career for your whole life, you actually know a tremendous amount. You just don't know that you do. I knew stuff about publishing that the publishers didn't know. It was weird to me. And then about 6 months into it, when I started writing with other writers or developing other writers, I realized that my love wasn't songwriting, which I thought my entire life my love was songwriting. I realized that my love was the art of songwriting, which was different. And I became obsessed with helping these young writers and giving them career opportunities. And within 6 months, I'd only signed a year-long contract to work for this company. I sold my studio and did a long-term contract with them because I loved it so much. So I worked with them for 4 years, and that's where I signed Timbaland and 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏. And then my boss left to go run SOCAN, which is Canada's ASCAP or BMI. And he asked me to open and create SOCAN Los Angeles, which is what I did. So after that job, I ran SOCAN Los Angeles. I built the offices and recording studios that are in Culver City now. And then 2 weeks before we were supposed to open, my son wrote me, he was 10 at the time, and he wrote me a handwritten letter that was like, Dad, I never see you. You're always on a plane. And I quit my job. That was very destructive at the time because we were about to open. But I felt I had a moment where I had to make a really tough life decision because things were going great. And it was the best thing I ever did. It was difficult for a year, but I work more now than I ever have and have more free time than I've ever had, if that makes sense, because I work for myself and my kid gets all of me. So that's all I really care about. My dad was an entrepreneur and he came from nothing. By the time I was a teenager, my dad had like 5 Burger Kings, 3 Ford dealerships. Like he was an entrepreneur. And for him, he just loved it. He drove a shitty beat up old car. It wasn't about the money. He just loved the deal. That was my dad. My dad said something to me when I was younger that really hit me. And he said, in life, you can write checks or you can cash checks. I wrote checks my whole life, meaning I didn't work for anybody my whole life. I really worked for myself. Even when I had rent, to me, that was really working for myself. I made that happen. When I went into the space of working for a publisher and working for a PRO, that was a legit job. In the beginning, it was amazing because even just the concept of being paid every week was pretty trippy. When you're a professional songwriter and things go up and down and you get paid in quarters, to have a weekly salary was really attractive to me at that time in my life. I loved everything that came with it. I'm not going to lie. I loved the support of walking into somewhere and the company already had its own reputation. And I actually found that really seductive, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have the success I have now on my own if I hadn't gone through that period working for a company that I think gave me the confidence to be able to do something on my own later on. Now, I love that I can execute any idea I come up with. But do I have the money to do it? Not all the time. So I put off songwriting retreats, A-list songwriting retreats. I've done them for Rihanna, Kesha, various artists, various companies. I put off a very unique type of camp. There's only a few people here in LA that are professional song camp organizers, and we all know who we are. And we have relationships with camp retreats all over the world. I like to do my camps extremely sequestered. So when I do a camp, it's the writers, which are usually about 18 writers, myself and my assistant. That's it. No managers allowed to come, no spouses, no label people, nobody. And a lot of that's psychological. When you take 18 people and you bring them in a place they've never been before and they don't have access to anybody else, they tend to bond quicker. The celebrity ones that I've done, you bring a big celebrity and you put them in the middle of the Nicaraguan jungle. They're going to start talking to the people around them pretty fast. You know what I'm saying? Like all the egos just die away. And also there's a certain insanely beautiful hive mentality that comes from 20 people doing nothing but writing songs for 5 days with nobody else. It's hard to explain, but it's a very beautifully combustible experience. My two favorites were Nicaragua and Bali. I'm a big jungle person. I love jungles. Usually in a 5-day camp, you'll end up with between 30 and 35 copyrights at the end of the week. So when you think about it, it's an extremely efficient way to get music for a project. Not workshops, like no one's learning how to write. It's setting up a situation for professionals to come together and just live together for a week and create for this artist. 6 years ago, I did a camp in Nova Scotia. There's a tremendous creative community on the east coast of Canada. And a lot of these towns, you go in and there's all these local artists, and that's how they make their money now, is selling stuff to the tourists. So I had this idea when I was putting this camp off. I was like, why don't I source a whole bunch of the artists from Lunenburg and have them come and sit in on the writing sessions and create their own artwork inspired by the songs that are getting written. So I got sculptors and painters and photographers and poets. I think I had 12 people. And I had them all come to the camp on the first day, and we put them in the writing rooms. The week went on, and there wasn't a lot of cross-contamination. Like lunchtime, the songwriters are over here, and the sculptors and painters are over here. And at first, I felt like it was becoming a bit of a failure. And I'm like, and my boss was still like, I don't understand what you're trying to achieve. And I'm like, So then the Friday comes when we always have our big party at the end of the week, and we play all the songs for each other. It's a lot of fun. And before the party happened, I had all the artists come in and hang all the artwork and place all those sculptures in the top photographs. So then you have sculpture with the name of the song there that it was done while writing. So then all the writers came in, and it was like the epiphany happened. And like people started to fucking cry. They were like, oh my God, that painting was done while we were doing, and like brains were exploding all over the place. And I remember I looked at my boss and I said, too bad there's no way to release all this stuff, eh? Flash forward to where we are now. So now something I'm really interested in doing, and I'm trying to put together my first one now, is an audiovisual camp. So the same thing I did back then, but now for NFTs. I have a lot of really insane NFT visual artists that are interested. I'm just trying now to find some sponsors and put it together. But just the idea that, like, I remember how exciting and inspiring. I was so inspired by that whole thing. So that's one of the things that I want to try to start doing in this space, is having legit audio-visual camps. The audio-visual, I don't know how to say it. This is going to be the new band. And there's some of them out there already, like Ghost Train is one. Ghost Train is a visual artist and a music artist, and together they're called Ghost Train. So this concept of like visual artists and music artists coming together to release something that has a visual component and a music component, to me, is a whole new type of band, or whatever you want to call it, that is going to be part of the future. I think there will be labels or companies that's all they do, these collaborations between audio and visual. Like Gabe Weiss, 𝗕𝗓𝗧𝗏, Warholdle, Eddie Gangland. These are all really good friends of mine that are pretty high up in the NFT space. Gabe is one of the biggest ones. But yeah, Toigo's Door, our project, the video game, we have 100 pieces of artwork from other artists in there. We wanted to show the community that we wanted to give optics to other people. So we have about 20 music artists in the game and 80 visual artists in the game. And all it really is their artwork hanging in the game with their credits. So we're very, very plugged into the visual side of the NFT space as well. Yes, in some ways, even more so, to be honest with you, just because that side of the space is so much bigger. The music NFT space is still quite small, but the visual art one is obviously quite large. There's so much I want to do in this industry. I feel like such a kid. again, it feels like solutions have come along that I thought that I wanted to get out of the traditional music industry because I couldn't do certain things. This is the most exciting time of my life. I released my own NFT. I released it on my birthday. It was called Life is a Gift. What I did was I was turning 53 and I made a 5.3 second GIF containing 53 pictures per second of my life, totaling 283 pictures. So I went through 45,000 pictures to do this. I also wrote a song that went along with it. And then I released it on Manifold, and 100% of the money went to charity, to Mental Health America. So it was a week-long open edition, but put up on YouTube now that it's over. But the cool thing is that when you're playing the video, it's just the GIFs, the pictures are just going by, but you can stop it anywhere and you'll see one of the 283 pictures from my life. And I saw it as like a conceptual art piece because I've had struggles in my life. My concept is that we meet people, especially in Web3, where it's like a picture or whatever. And then you judge people we rarely judge people by them. We're usually judging people by the experiences we've had, right? Like all the people that have screwed us over or whatever. And what I wanted to try to put forth is the people that we meet, they have a whole life behind them of like joy and pain and sadness and sorrow. And all these things make up the person that's standing before you. So when I put the project together, it's not just all like happy pictures. I specifically chose pictures that something was happening in my life. And I have some pictures in there. I have one where I have just tears pouring down my face that I took right after something really horrible happened in my life. And I wanted that to be a part of it, to humanize in a way this digital world we're living in. But the thing that was really cool to me was in the song, I hadn't written a song of my own in years, and I did it for this. The very fact that that idea could come up is part of the power of Web3. You just couldn't do that at Web2. I don't even know how to describe it. It wouldn't make sense over there. Over here, it's like, oh man, you did a GIF and put a song onto it. Like, it makes so much sense. And it's that extension of what art and creativity is that's so exciting, because it's a new creativity that's been created by just blending everything. Everyone can work together and we can find ways for collaboration. Is the number one thing for success, in my opinion, in any creative medium. It's when you start working with other people and bringing other people into your world that it starts expanding. And the Web3 culture is it's ripe for that. It's made for that. The NFT space has done for visual art what digital did for music years ago. It made it so anybody can go into that space. And I think in general, everyone just has to get more understanding that your value is your community. We have lots of what I call like sister and brother communities at Toigo's Door. And I say that because I know the founders, they love what we're doing. We love what they're doing. Honestly, it took time for us to gravitate and find our people. But now that we have, I feel that I've made more genuine friends and connections in the past year in Web3 than probably the past 10 years of my life. Some of my closest friends, I've never met them. And on top of that they mean more to me than like people in my real life. But I think part of that, though, we're all very like-minded. We're full of hope and full of optimism and want to make something happen. That energy together is really powerful.
Are we shifting from the creator economy to the fan economy? I'm looking forward to seeing how artists innovate in this space, as well as fan clubs going on-chain. If you want to learn more about Toigo's Door, follow on Twitter at @𝗕𝗏𝗡𝗧𝗏 and at Toigo's Door, or check out their website at mintoigosdoor.com.